What's up, incredible and loved and valued people. I am so grateful for who you are, and I'm so grateful that you are on the Have You Heard podcast. I am your host, MMA McDaniel, and friends, I am so stoked about this conversation today with Sazan Hendrix because we are going to be talking about the importance of being present, what that looks like in our everyday lives. We're going to be talking about how to invest into your marriage while you have kids and how to intentionally make memories with your kiddos in the Monday, everyday moments. So friends, grab your headphones and let's get into the word. Sazan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Miss Emma May. How are you? Hello, podcast family. I am so happy to be here today with all of you.
Oh, thank you. And I'm doing so good. Thank you for asking. That's really sweet. I love asking people on the podcast, what is something that made you smile today?
Seeing your face, because we're actually looking at each other here. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say seeing your face, because the last time I saw you, it was at like this little top secret, beautiful retreat that we did up in California. And that's where I got to meet you a year ago. And here we are again, our paths crossing. And I'm just so excited because I remember when I met you, I specifically told you, I said, there is something about your voice that just draws me in. There's so much joy in it. There's so much light and beauty. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just want you to like put me to bed with that voice. It's just so joyful to be in the presence of. So I'm excited to now get to be on your podcast and hear more of your voice.
Oh my gosh. I remember you telling me that, and my mom was with me at that retreat, and I remember going back to my hotel room and I was telling her what you said to me because it meant so much. And I want to tell you too that you have such a presence and a way of loving people that I automatically felt welcomed by you. I automatically felt like I was your best friend. I felt so loved by you, and I just feel like because you're so honest and you're so just open to engage so intentionally with people, you make people feel that way. And I can say it again, as I have missed you. Like, it's just sitting here with you today, I feel the same way as I did a year ago.
Oh, that is the best compliment. You know, I love more than anything getting to connect with people. And I hope that everyone listening feels that same warmth by the end of this episode. That is my goal, that everyone feels like I can be their best friends. And I want them to be my best friends, because connecting is just one of the most powerful tools that we can tap into through these virtual opportunities and the internet, as we've both seen. And so I'm just excited to be here today and see what God's going to do through this episode.
Me too. And I love that you're talking about connection, because I feel like that's a big thing that I was so excited to talk to you about today. And one avenue of connection in particular was you and your connection with your husband, Stevie. I love how affectionate you are with him and how openly you respect him, and you just tell people how much he means to you. And something I've noticed that you say regularly is that you're forever dating your husband. Like, you're dating him even though y'all are now married. And I would love to ask you, has that gotten harder to date your husband with having kids? Because with kids comes a new routine, it comes a new day in and day out rhythm. And so if that has been harder, what have you done to intentionally continue to date Stevie as y'all are married?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. You know, Stevie is my best friend, and I am so grateful that I got to marry my best friend. I mean, don't get me wrong, he drives me crazy sometimes, and I drive him crazy. But what I've loved about our relationship is that we've always made this pact that no matter what, even when kids come into the picture, even when opportunities and dreams are being chased, all of that comes in the picture. We said, no matter what, we have to always prioritize our relationship. And with God at the center, it's like the three of us. You know what I mean? It's literally like, we've got to put ourselves in the three of us first, God first at the center of it, but we have to prioritize us. And I knew that when we were having our first daughter, this was back in, oh my gosh, I was 28 years old. I'm 33 now. So gosh, when was that? That was 2017. Girl, I'm bad at math.
Whoa.
But anyways, it was like 2017. I remember that was one of my little like moments in the journey where I was like a little sad. It's like
Mhm.
bittersweet because you're like, well, what's going to happen with us? We're so excited
Yeah.
for this new blessing that's coming, that's already sort of taken over our minds and our plans. We're starting to prepare for this baby coming in 9 months. And I started to feel that little sadness of like, well, does that mean that, we're going to sort of like slowly put us on the back burner for a while or not be able to do
Mhm.
all the things that we love? And I just remember we got the best advice from two of our friends who had a baby before us. And they said, you have to remember that this baby is coming into your world. You're not going into their world. Ultimately, a baby wants to come into a life and into a world that is already feels like home, that's already been established. There's already those pillars and that structure set for them. So Stevie and I always have kept that in our minds.
Wow.
And that is what has motivated us to not to not go longer than a month without a date night. I mean, we can squeeze in a date night at least once a month, we say, and our goal is once a week. That's been
Yeah.
our consistent thing. But we say don't go longer than a month, and if that even means like asking a family member to come home and babysit, we're doing it. And so we've just
Mhm.
been more intentional. And I think what happens when you have a kid is it actually makes you appreciate the quality of that time that you have together. Whereas when you don't have a kid, you realize, oh, we can do date night whenever we want. We got the freedom and we got the time. But once
Yeah.
you have a kid, it does kind of flip some things upside down. But I mean that in the best way, because now when we have our date nights, we're not looking at our phones. We're really spending that
Mhm.
quality time together, knowing that we're paying a sitter. Someone's on the clock. We better make the most of this time. And I just love that we
So
try to
good.
stay as connected. And then there's seasons of life where we really can't get out of the house for whatever reason. There's just things happening. We can't get a sitter. So what we just try to do is at the end of every night when the kids go down, it's like a date night doesn't have to be this larger than life experience. It's about connecting with
Mhm.
each other, sitting together, talking, putting away all of the other distractions and saying, I'm putting you and me first. Let's talk, let's hang out. And that's just been our sort of our mantra throughout this journey now with three kids. A third kid is coming. So I think
Yeah.
it's going to always change with the ebb and the flow, but I think we want to continue to keep prioritize that togetherness being at the
Mm.
core is just so important.
That's so beautiful how you are sharing the heart of why you're doing what you're doing, and then the practicality of how you're living out that heart. Like the heart is our marriage matters. The heart is how we intentionally pour into our marriage is going to impact
Mm.
how our home functions. It's going to impact the environment our children grow up in. And then the practicality that you're bringing is okay, we have to intentionally mark down dates on our calendar.
Yes.
We have to intentionally not set unrealistic standards on ourselves that sometimes it just looks like putting our phones away and having intentional quality time together before bed after the kids are down. So I love that you're bringing these two together because I think sometimes we have a hard time connecting those two of like, I know my heart, but how do I implement it? Or you forget the heart as you're implementing it. So the fact that you're bringing those two together is so powerful. And your kids are going to be so, and I bet are, which I adore them by the way, so
Oh,
blessed by it.
I hope so. Thank you, Emma May.
Yeah.
You know what's amazing is like I read something, I don't know where, pregnancy brain right now, but I read something that said like your kids, their first example of what a relationship and even a marriage looks like is the one that they see in their household. And so sometimes as parents, we even go through the mom guilt or the father guilt of like leaving our kids to go enjoy a date night. You wonder like, "Oh my God, I just left them behind and they were sad and they were crying." There's so many times those things are going to happen where you can feel your kid is tugging at you like don't leave me, and it makes you feel like wait, am I a bad person for leaving them? Like you'll kind of go through that with the mom guilt. And I just want to say,
Yeah.
if that ever happens to anyone, to just stop right there and remind yourself that there is so much beauty in being that example for your children, knowing that, yeah, I'm going on a date night because we need this in our marriage, but I'm actually pouring purpose into my kids' lives and showing them what a healthy relationship looks like when mommy and daddy tuck away to go love each other and to be together and spend time together.
Mm,
And then it also teaches your children a different and a new kind of love through whoever is watching and caretaking them, whether it's a
yeah.
sitter or a nanny or a friend or a family member. And it could be different age ranges. As we've seen, we've hired sitters who are like 15 years old all the way to 50 years old. And it really just, it shows your kids how to be in the presence of other people and how to love
Mm,
others while also receiving that same love in a new way from somebody else besides mom and dad. So really, I think it's a learning thing and a learning lesson for them as well. So
yeah.
I say do it. I say do it, and it'll be so good for them, even if they're tugging at you.
Oh, wow. I love two things that you said. One, I love that perspective. I've actually never thought of that perspective before, that this is actually so good for my kids to build relationships with other people who love them and care for them and want to spend time with them. And then also just like how worth it is to go and prioritize those date nights and not let the mom or the dad guilt rob the joy of why you're actually doing
Yeah.
what you're doing. And actually what you said that I loved is you're setting an example to show your kids what a healthy marriage looks like. I've heard you say one time to not hide your affection for your spouse from your kids, and I
Mhm.
love that so much. It's so beautiful, and I just hear you, and just through the example that you said, I see you do that. So thank you for doing that. That's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you. And I know you're the same way. When you love someone, you should show it and never be ashamed of that. I think
Yeah.
sometimes when I grew up, my parents, they totally love each other, but there was always that sense of like, we have to show each other affection in privacy. It was almost
Mm,
like this, like, oh my gosh, this dishonor if we like even hold hands in front of our kids. And it was just like, there was this like, wall between kids and parents showing that like mom and dad, we love each other. And then as we get older, right, my mom tries to sneak over and kiss my dad on the cheek, and we're like, ew. But I can say now as an adult, as I've seen those little bits and pieces of my parents like caving and actually showing each other love, because you can't hide
yeah.
it, it's been actually really rewarding even for me as an adult now to know that like that really validates too to your children, like how much you can just pour yourself and pour out love into the things and the people that you love without shame, and just kind
Mhm.
of soak in that humility a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm being cheesy with daddy for a second. Like, I think it teaches them, how to do the same, and it's a powerful thing, really.
Yeah, I so agree. That is so special and sweet. I I feel like something really cool, even just in this conversation, but also something that I have learned from you honestly a lot about is in being present. And in this, we're talking about just being intentional to be present with your husband. And
Mhm.
I want to get into being present with your kids. But before I do that, I would love for you to talk to those who are listening who maybe aren't in this season necessarily. They maybe don't have kiddos, they
Mhm.
may not be married, but maybe just navigating like being present in friendships, being present with their parents, being present like in the current season that they're in and what
Mm.
that looks like. I would love for you to share just some encouragement of like what it looks like to not let distractions rob you from being present where the Lord currently has you, to those who are listening.
That is such a powerful thing. I think it seems so simple to just put your phone down, to just go enjoy life. But really, what I found over the last decade, myself included, is since the rise of social media and technology and all of this AI and just distractions all around in this fast-paced go 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 world, it's actually a lot harder to tuck away and just do nothing, because what we've
Mm-hmm.
seen is that there almost like there's this product that comes from productivity, And if you're not doing anything, there's this lie that you're not being productive and that you're wasting time. And I
Mm.
think that we need to debunk that lie because there is power in rest. And some people listening, you may be coming in or out of a season where you are just physically or mentally exhausted. You are graduating or you're a student. Some of you just got married, so you're on that high of like honeymoon phase, and you're just trying to figure out all the things about life in the midst of those milestone moments. I just want to say, like, be present where your feet are. And the best and easiest way to do that is by checking your meter inside. We all have this meter, I believe, in our souls, and it's like a gauge, right? And it's like, are you feeling empty? Like, how is that? How is that love tank doing in that soul of yours? Because
Mm.
sometimes what we're doing, what we're putting out into the world, it's just, it can become too much. And we need to take a step back and we need to ask ourselves, am I okay? You know? And I think what we're
Yeah.
craving more than anything today is just more connection, but not in the digital social media sense. It's like, I want to
Hmm.
connect with my hobbies. I want to connect with nature. I want to connect with my children. I want to connect with
Yeah.
my boyfriend or my husband. And we need to simplify that process by decluttering our lives. We have
Hmm.
to get rid of certain things to make room for new things. And while that's so hard to do, anytime in my life where I've seen, if you look at our lives like a tree, it's like you start to see really beautiful things growing on that tree. So it's hard sometimes to prune back when you're like,
Hmm.
I've done all this work, I've seen all these amazing miracles and blessings happen. And now you're asking me, Lord, to chop some things down? Like what? And I just believe that when we prune back and we're constantly checking in with that tree and that meter within ourselves, we're able to make room for the things that God wants to fill your life with. Maybe you need more
Yes.
rest. You know, you got to give some things up sometimes to get that. And so
Hmm.
I always start my day every day, just the first hour, in the last hour, I am not on my social media or I'm not checking into my responsibilities. The
Mm.
first hour is really a powerful day to set the tone for a winning day. And some
Yeah.
of you may wake up at 6:30 because you got to get to your job at 8 and you're like, I can't imagine getting up at 5:30 because I got to leave at 6:30. But I would say find a pocket of time every day, carve out that time where you can truthfully be present in what matters most to you. I
Hmm.
believe that as a mom, I have learned that more valuably than anything else, because so often I see my kids like we're in the same room, but I also realize I'm trying to do a million things while they're in the room with me. Like, how can I maximize my time? Let me
Mm.
go do the dishes, the laundry, let me check some emails. And what I realize is even though we're in the same room, I'm not really present and I'm not making myself
Yeah.
available for them. So for me, what I've realized how I can make myself more available is I can simply choose to put my phone away and I'm just going to go literally sit on the couch. I'm not going to be on anything. I'm just going to literally sit there, not doing anything while they're playing so that they can see that mom is available for them when they need me.
That's
It
so
doesn't mean I have
good.
to do that all day, but it's literally that like 15-20 minutes where your kids are in the same room, dwelling in the same room with you, and they just see you sitting there and being available. There's so much blessing that we can't see that can happen there. And so
Hmm.
I want anybody listening to make themselves more available to some of the areas and the things in their life that you want to nurture and that you want to see grow. And I believe that God is able to move when, true faith is at rest. And so we
Yeah.
have to practice that stillness in our hearts and in our spirits and in our routines. And for me in this current season, it's just, it doesn't have to be larger than life. It's a
Hmm.
5 minute detour I can take in my day to go sit with my kids and to do the unknown or the uncomfortable thing. And then I go and I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa, I actually needed this more than they did. And it's just,
Wow.
that's what happens when we kind of take those detours in our day. So I would say look
Hmm.
for those pockets of time and those places and spaces in your life where you can take a detour and watch what
Yeah.
it's going to do, because it'll be good, I promise.
Sometimes the smallest things have such a ginormous impact. Something that you said reminded me of some advice that my mom gave me back in college, because you were talking about imagining our life as a tree and how you see so many beautiful things growing on it, but there may come a season where, although it may be a beautiful thing, it may not be the best thing for you in this season, so you have to prune it away, and that could be difficult. And it made me think of something my mom told me when she said, Emma, I want to challenge you to not compare your seasons. And this
Mm.
is some advice I've shared multiple times on this podcast, because honestly, it's something that's just been on my mind a lot since she's told me. And I just love that you said that, because I think that is so true, that in one season of your life, you may have the capacity, God may be calling you to do many things all throughout your day for months at a time, and it's your rhythm, and it's
Mhm.
beautiful, and you're walking in obedience, you have margin, you it's healthy. But then
Mm.
you step into a new season, and I think sometimes, like, you could, because it may not be the best season for you to go at that pace you were going at, you do have to take things out. And I could see it be something where you would feel like, oh no, I'm being lazy, or like you were saying, I'm not
Mhm.
being productive, or I'm not being as efficient as I could be, or I'm failing because I'm not doing everything at the capacity that I used to. And I just love this sweet perspective that you're bringing of, there's a reason that we have different seasons in life, and there's a requirement that we do prune things away and continue to reevaluate, continue to go before the Lord and ask Him to show us how to steward our time and what to invest in. And I feel like what you just said would just bring a lot of freedom to people, of like,
Mm.
oh, like, it's okay if maybe I'm a mom now and I don't have as much capacity to do all the things I did when I was single, but that doesn't mean I'm less of a like woman. It doesn't mean that I'm
Yeah.
less productive. It doesn't mean that I'm less efficient. Like, it doesn't
Yep.
mean my identity has decreased in value. It just means
Mhm.
the Lord has brought me into this new season, so therefore it looks different, and it would be unrealistic for me to assume that it's going to look the same. So that
That's
was one thing that you
powerful.
said, that I love that, and I pray that brings a lot of relief to people
Yeah.
who are listening.
I mean, look at this time of year. Like right now, I'm sitting in front of my window here in Austin, and we kind of live up in the hills. And I'll tell you that we're surrounded and covered by trees. But if you
Hmm.
look outside my window right now, you're going to see that all these trees are completely naked and they don't look cute. Okay. There's no leaves on these trees. And what's amazing is that God gives us nature. And if we take a second, first of all, to stop and actually look up at God's creation that He's given us here on this earth, you can look in at an actual tree. And my favorite time of year, I don't know about you, is fall, because that's when the trees are so beautiful everywhere and you see more color and vibrance. And I mean, it's like at its peak. But then as you see the seasons literally go on, you see the leaves fall. And it's sad when they fall, because I'm like, they were so beautiful a week ago. Why can't these leaves in this tree just stay orange and red and beautiful like this forever? And because God has not made it that way for a reason,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing with each and every single one of us. You go through seasons where you just don't have much to share or much to give or much to work towards, and you feel a little naked, and you feel that makes you uncomfortable when you're naked, literally. But then you
Mm-hmm.
can look outside and look at these trees, and you know that these trees are going to fill up again with leaves when the time
Yeah.
is right, because there's a time for everything. As we hear about all throughout the scriptures, there's a time for everything. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that what the Lord is doing inside of each and every single one of us, there's a time to rest, and there is a time to reap, and there's a time to harvest, and all of the things. And so we
Yeah.
need to remind ourselves of that, because I think that the worldly narrative today is kind of like, it's like your spirit or something is like everything's a 24/7 convenience store, 24/7 open, 24/7, like always up and running. But we need to know when to be okay with clocking out and just surrendering to the season that we're in. And really, loving where you are right now, despite not being where you want to be. I think that is really
Mm,
the ultimate goal for each and every single one of us for the rest of our
yeah.
days here on this earth until we go home. It's really just like, we're never truly going to be content because this earth is not our home. It's a pit stop. But while we're here on this earth, it's like, Lord, how can I just be happy and okay with where I am right now, to be
Hmm.
planted where my feet are, and be okay despite not being where I want to be, and just believing
Yeah.
that God is going to move you because he already has a plan for your life. And what I love is the visual of imagining, like, think about all of the things that the Lord saves us from and keeps us from that we don't even know about. But if we
Whew,
did know about
yeah.
it, we would be like, oh my gosh. Like, there's so many times I've almost like hit a car, or oh my gosh, I've almost bumped into like a little tree when I'm driving. I'm like, oh my God, that was close. That could have been really bad. Think about that in the spiritual sense. How many
Hmm.
things is God working in this season for you behind the scenes that you can't even see, but he is guarding you and he is protecting you. And
Yeah.
that is like your insurance policy right there. God has got you, and he's going to do things with your life when the time is right and when he says it's time. So it's really a matter of surrendering, right? Not being the
Hmm.
captain of that ship, and just allowing the Lord to do what he's going to do, and for that to give you peace so that you can
Hmm.
literally just be present and enjoy your life today, because you're going to look back one day and those little moments are going to end up being the big things that you cherish. So start cultivating that now where you can, because you can. And
Wow.
this is my permission. I feel like we need permission sometimes. This is the permission to do that.
Yeah.
God tells us to do that. He wants to see his children enjoy life. He wants to see
Hmm.
us playing. Just like my husband loves seeing my girls get on their bikes outside and being in nature and getting scuffed up, and being present and enjoying life. I
Hmm.
believe that the Lord feels that way about each and every single one of us, his children, but even on a maximized level. He just wants us to find those pockets of time in our day where we can be children in the spirit and just enjoy life for what it is,
Yeah.
because there's so much blessing waiting for us when we do that.
Oh my goodness, this is so encouraging. It makes me think of one of my favorite Psalms is Psalm 16. And something that David says in this Psalm is, Lord, you've put my boundary lines in pleasant places. And
Hmm.
I've been thinking on that too a lot in regard to this conversation, just the fact that where you are at, like those of you who are listening, where you are at, the season that the Lord has put you in, it is so purposeful. So, Sazan, everything that you're saying about like being planted there, being present there, I think there is so much fruit that comes from that because you're choosing to fix your eyes on the Lord and be fully faithful and present in where He's put you. So
Hmm.
that's just so good. And it reminded me of, I think it was John Mark Comer he talks a lot about like the elimination of hurry and the intentionality to rest. And something that he said is we need to get better at recapturing moments of boredom.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's what you're saying. That like,
Hmm.
but I feel like very
Yep.
easily these moments will quickly, the more we get used to recapturing those moments of boredom, they're not going to be boring anymore. We're actually going to
Hmm.
savor them and crave them, and we're going to glean so much from them. But it is like going on a bike ride or choosing to just sit and be in the living room as your girls are there. And it's like, or choosing to, in a moment where I could be just scrolling on my phone, I'm going to choose to just be in the quiet. And
Hmm.
I just love that. I feel like this is a podcast of just encouraging people to go recapture those moments of boredom and watch
Hmm.
yourself be just amazed at how it actually does refill your cup.
That is so good, because I think we associate the word boredom as just something like dreadful. And even the word simple, I think we living in America have this American dream that like we got to do the most and be the most. And even for God's kingdom, like I'm such a I am such a type 3 Enneagram that like I'm just like, Lord, let's go. I've only got what 100 years on this earth, if that. I'm ready to go for you. I'm ready to bat. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And so often God is just like, hey, I'm putting you in the dugout. Like you're not coming out yet. Like go sit down. And I think it's okay to have those sparks in your heart and those desires to want to, while you're here on this earth, you want to be the best that you can be and that God's made you to be. That's okay to have that goal. But I also
Mhm.
believe it's very powerful to balance and prioritize that rest and that recapturing of the boredom that you're talking about, because there's so much beauty in simplicity. And I'm
Yeah.
rediscovering that in this current season with my two children. Having
Mhm.
millions of people that follow me online, sometimes I feel the pressure when I wake up every day that, oh gosh, what am I going to share? How am I going to serve this community? I just really, God, what do you want to do with this today? And there's been a lot of seasons where I've seen the Lord not speak back, and I'm like, okay, so do I need to figure this out myself, because I'm still committed to figuring this
Hmm.
out? And what I heard the Lord really speak to me in this season, what he said to me was that there's two followers in your house who follow you every day. Those are the two people I want you to influence right there. It was on such a granular level that God met me in
Wow.
my prayer. And he said, start right there with those two little girls that are like watching me and following me. Let me influence them and let me kind of show them the way through the day. And then through what God has shown me with that, I feel like I have so much I want to share now with the online world and with other moms out there. And it's
Mm.
amazing how God takes what's right in front of us and he'll start with that. He'll use that as like,
So
this is your starting
true.
point. You don't need to go and think this larger in life game plan, strategy plan. It's the two kids right in front of you. And I know that the term influencer is rather new, right? But the word influence is not. And I believe that each and every
Mm.
single person listening right now on this podcast, we all have a sphere of influence. We all have different spheres of influence. Some of
Yeah.
you, it's right in your workplace. Some of you, it's in your household. Some of you, it's, through the school that you're at and how you show
Hmm.
up at your church. We all have the power to influence. And I believe that life doesn't have to be this quote unquote boring thing where you isolate and you don't connect with others. In fact, by taking a step back from your own life and your own goals and all of the things, sometimes you're able to actually be more present, to see the needs of others around you, and to want to like ignite by sharing some of those gifts and speaking life over those people, encouraging those people, tapping into those God given gifts that aren't even really about you. It's about
Yeah.
helping them. But suddenly it fills you up, and you're like, whoa, that felt really good, doing something outside of myself by walking
Hmm.
away from my life and my priorities and my to do list to go be a part of these two little girls' worlds, to go be a
Yeah.
part of, my friends' worlds, and to ask how they're doing and to be more intentional and have more face-to-face interactions with those that matter in our lives. And so I want to
Mm.
just encourage everybody to put their influencer hats on, because you are an influencer, whether you have a million
Yes.
followers on an
Hmm.
Instagram platform or not. God wants to use each and every single one of us. And it starts with the most simple thing, like just being present where your feet are.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I could not agree more. And I'm so grateful that you said that because it's so true. We all have influence. You are an influencer wherever it is that you're at, in whatever sphere the Lord has entrusted to you,
Mhm.
whatever pleasant places He's put your boundary lines, be faithful there.
Yes. So
I love
good.
so much that you're talking about how like two of your biggest followers are the two little girls in your home, and I know that you talked about like how sometimes just wanting to get things done and be in that like productive mindset can sometimes rob you from missing those moments with your girls. And I love how you said, yeah, sometimes I just decide, you know what, I'm just going to go sit there and be with them. But I would love to ask you, in those moments where you catch yourself getting distracted from being present, how do you not let, I guess we've called it mom guilt, like how do you not let that just feeling bad type of weight hold you back from then stepping into being present? Because I know, like, for myself, in tons of different scenarios, I have caught myself in a position of like, oh man, I wish I did that better. And then instead
Mhm.
of like stepping into the next second saying, okay, well, here we are, here's a new chance, I then will
Mhm.
sometimes let the next 1 billion seconds be robbed from me
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
I'm caught up in those 10 seconds I didn't steward well. And so,
Uh-huh.
how do you move on quick and make the most of those moments with your girls and not be so hard on yourself about not doing it perfect?
Right. Yeah. Whether it's on a personal level, like not wanting to do something perfect, or I'll share a scenario and an example that I recently went through is like in our business, we're changing some things and we're kind of hiring new people and roles are changing. And, I was having a scenario where, somebody who had been working for me for a very long time, that
Mm.
relationship was just starting to like, unfortunately, like drift apart. And it was like almost irreconcilable. And I'm like, hey, let's have an amicable adult discussion about how we're going to part ways and not be offended that this time has come. And it was not being reciprocated. It was just like it
Mm.
felt like I was talking to a child. And this person is like 3 times my age, grown person. And I'm just
Oh
like, I'm
man.
just so angry and I'm upset. And I'm just like, why does it have to be like this? And I'm now robbed of my sleep at night. I can't stop thinking about it. Lord, what's going to happen? And then I got some really great advice from a spiritual mentor who told me that, you know, it's okay in the moments where you feel inadequate or you're feeling really mad at somebody or angry, whatever that is, go and feel that. Like if you need to go for a
Hmm.
walk, if you need to go take an hour to write in the journal and just get everything out and you're mad and you're frustrated, but
And then and
you're just like
then
feeling you like go take an hour or a day and go allow yourself to be mad or be angry or to have the guilt, whatever, like go and feel that. But then once you feel that and once it's tell yourself tomorrow when I wake up, this is done. I'm not going
Mm.
to continue this or an hour later. If you give yourself an hour, like after an hour, I can go kick and have the temper tantrum. I can do what I need to do for an hour with this thing I'm so fixated on that
Yeah,
after this hour, I'm not giving any more power to it. That's it.
that's
I'm
good.
going to move forward now. And sometimes the distraction is our emotions and how we get so wrapped up in it. And I believe that the Lord who created us in his image, he gives us, right? Like he allows us to feel. We're
Yeah,
not robots.
absolutely.
We're not Siri. We're like we can feel emotions. I don't think we should be guilty. And as a mother, sometimes I think a lot of other moms can relate when it's like you don't want your kids to see you like freaking out or panicking or having a moment where you're just being a human. And I think that it's like feel what you need to feel
Hmm.
and just don't unpack it and like let it stay. You think of it like a
Yeah.
guest coming into your house. Like feel what you need to feel, let it visit you, but you're not going to unpack and you're not going to let those emotions unpack and keep residence, in your spirit.
Yeah,
Like and so once you feel those
that's good,
things,
Sazan.
then you can move forward and sometimes even when I need to walk away, I actually notice that when I walk away and I'm feeling angry, I notice God also meets me there. And suddenly he's showing
Hmm.
me things and he's bringing me this like supernatural peace over the situation. And so I think it's important we spend some time with those feelings that sometimes rob us from our joy and from being
Hmm.
present. And then once you unpack it and like feel it, then it's like, okay, you're out of here. Get out.
Yeah.
And then I think that really helps you release those true feelings that you're having, and then now you're actually able to like show up with intention because you said I'm going to show up now like this is an invitation. My life, I'm going to show up for my life like it's an invitation, and I'm not going to dwell on the past and what I just went through. And I think that that's really important even with your kids. I used to
Hmm.
be afraid to like if I lashed out, like, I mean, we're human. There's been countless times where I've said, "Oh my God, don't do that. You're gonna fall and end up getting hurt." And this, that, as parents, sometimes we just react.
Yeah.
And there are times where I'm like, "Oh God, I shouldn't have done that." And instead of being guilty about that, like, "Oh, I shouldn't have handled that scenario like that," what you can do is, whether it's like you did that to yourself, like you were saying, sometimes I feel that guilt. For me, it's sometimes with my kids. I will literally go up to my kids and I will tell them, my kids, look them in the eye and say, hey, Valentina, the way that mommy just acted over there, she was very upset. And that wasn't the best way for me to respond. That probably wasn't the right
Mm,
thing to do. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. Will you forgive me? And a 5-year-old will look at you and say, yes, mommy, I forgive you. And what my hope is that when we do
I
things
love
that
that.
maybe we regret, or we didn't show up as our best selves, to use that as like a tool where you can even teach your kids through that lens of like,
Mm,
you're going to also probably make mistakes in your life and maybe scream or yell or bully somebody else or yourself. And if that ever happens, I would hope that she would know, like, hey, I remember when mommy would always come up to me and apologize. I'm going to go apologize to this person, or I'm going to go
mm,
apologize to myself for doing what I just did or saying what I just spoke over myself. Like, I think it's important that we do that and that we cultivate that in our
mhm.
households. You know, it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in or what age. I just think we need to walk in that humility and just be
Yeah.
humble enough to mention, hey, a quick sorry when I do something like that over yourself, and to feel it's okay to feel.
It's okay to feel. And as a parent, to be humble before your children, you're also presenting yourself to be more approachable. So whenever
Mm,
your kids mess up and they are looking for a safe place to process through that, they know, like, oh, I can go to mom because she's made herself available to me in such a way where I know she's not perfect and I know it's a safe place to apologize, to be honest. And like, again, just how you were talking about with Stevie, y'all are setting the example of a godly, healthy, affectionate marriage. You're also setting the example of humility before
yeah.
your children. I love
Mm,
that so much. I
thank
I would
you.
love to finish off with a fun and practical question. Um I know you shared one fun idea, but I think it's really sweet to get practical here.
Hmm.
So, whenever talking about like being present with your kids just in the everyday mundane moments, what are some things that you do with your girls, just like, I don't know, just to give some people ideas of like, okay, I'm so inspired, but what would this look like? And it may not look exactly like this, but just to be inspired by how you're just present in the everyday moments with your girls.
Ugh, I love this question only because at the top of this year, that was one of my personal goals, was as a
Oh,
mom, I want to really start having shared memories with my kids now that they're getting older. I remember 5 years old was when I have my earliest memories. So I said, this is a really fun, pivotal year where we can start doing things together. But to be honest with you, I didn't grow up with like that sort of experience. Like my mom was just
mhm.
trying to survive. My dad was trying to survive. They worked two jobs. Like, so I don't have that sort of foundational, like, oh, I'll just do this, what I did, so what I've
Yeah.
learned is like I have to cultivate that. And so I've spent like an hour just one night after the kids went to bed. This was in January. I went online and I sort of created my own little mini bucket list for me
Oh,
and my kids. And this bucket list has things on it that like I know their personalities, like I know it would be like really fun things for them, but it's just about that quality time and doing things. And
yeah.
not everything is like spending money or like going somewhere. It's just like really sweet things. I'm trying to think of some examples, and one that we recently did. So, my daughter's obsessed with her baby dolls and her Barbies and her stuffed animals. So, I told her, I want you to pick one of your dolls or teddy bears, whichever one's your favorite currently, and we're going to throw a birthday party for that doll or that bear.
Stop
And I
it.
said, now you're the mom, so you need to let me know what is the theme, what is baby doll going to be wearing, who's going to be invited. We have to color invites and make invites for this party, and then what kind of cake do you want to do, all that. And it was actually a very inexpensive thing. What we ended up doing was she chose her beautiful little Baby Alive doll. She put her in like this cute little glittery dress and she told me the theme. She was just like, I want like cupcakes and I want, princess. And then she invited all of her other dolls to the party. And then her
Oh
cousin
my
Lucy came
goodness.
over that night for a sleepover. So we all got to do it together. And then little Amari, my 2-year-old, my second born, she was a part of it and really into it. And then I said to her, this activity was really sweet because it allowed my daughter to feel like, wow, I get to create something for this baby doll that I love,
Mm.
and mom's going to help me put it all together. But then what was really sweet was that we blew out the candles, we did the whole party for this little girl, and then we went around and each person got to say why they love baby doll. Like something like we always do this on birthdays is like, how can we bless the birthday girl or the birthday person? Like
Yeah.
say, everyone say one thing you love about so and so. So when it came to Valentina's turn to get to say like why she loved her baby doll, it was just like the sweetest, almost like she copy and pasted like something I would have said to her. And she said to this baby doll, she was just said, I just love how you bring me a lot of happiness and we do things together. And I hope you have a great year ahead. I was like,
Oh,
I'm dying for you.
Sazan.
It's so sweet. And
That's
that was just an
precious.
example. It was just an example. And now that's a memory
Yeah.
ingrained in our hearts forever. And I wouldn't have thought of that, but I saw it online through Pinterest.
Yeah.
It was like cute ideas you can do with your kids and make it your own. So I just want to
That's
encourage
awesome.
anyone to create a bucket list for yourself of things that you want to do. And it doesn't have to be a long bucket list or crazy out of this world, like lifetime bucket list, but think about it as like a monthly bucket list or a
Hmm.
quarterly bucket list. And it should just be things that you know will fill and fuel your soul in your life. Things that'll
Yeah.
kind of force you to walk into these present moments. And
Hmm.
then it becomes a muscle that you constantly continue to exercise. And then you can pass it down to others around you or to your
Yeah.
future kids. So that's what we're cultivating over here in the Hendrix home. And now she's like, can we do another birthday party? And I'm like, okay, we need to get creative. We need to change it up. Okay. It's a little too much cake
Oh,
around here.
that's so good. That's so so good. Thank you for sharing that. I've heard you share one time that like your kids aren't looking for the most elaborate, most expensive gifts. They're looking for your time, and
Your
it's one of the
time.
most valuable things you could give them. And so, thank you
Amen.
for sharing that example. I feel like that would just really help those who are listening, like even those who aren't moms, but those are just like looking to be a better friend. Like and
Hmm.
actually remembering, "Oh, it actually is a lot more simple than I'm probably making it in my head of just
Yeah.
being present, investing into people, connecting with the people who are right in front of me. And
Mm.
so, Cezanne, there are so many golden nuggets in this conversation, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to pour into me personally and pour into everybody who's listening because this is incredible.
Well, I feel just as blessed in return talking to you today. You also have so much wisdom that you share from your nightly skincare routine, and you're just dropping all the fire scripture. Like, I just love how you bring people into your life in such an authentic way, and you don't hesitate or shy away from the Lord and talking
Mm,
about what He's doing, not only in your life, but in other people's lives. You have that gift, I think, of really understanding and feeling like what the Lord's doing in other people's lives. Like you have that connection with your community. And so I'm just a huge fan getting to watch and I'm blessed by
oh,
it as well. So keep doing all the amazing things that you're doing. And I can't wait to squeeze you. When am I going to see you next? That is the last
oh, Cezanne, I
question.
hope it's so soon.
I would love that. Seriously. You need to come
Wow.
out and visit me for sure.
Yes, I do. We definitely do. Wow, everybody, Suzanne said at the beginning of this podcast that she just really hoped you felt so connected. You felt like you were our friends. And I just really hope that that is the case. That not only do you feel like you're our friends, but you feel equipped and encouraged to go be a better friend. And you're encouraged in
Amen.
the confidence that God has given you a sphere of influence. And you're encouraged to be present and that the Lord has put your boundary lines in pleasant places. So be fully there. There's so many golden nuggets. So you could do
So
that little 15-second backwards button and write it all down. But I love y'all so much, and I cannot wait to talk to y'all next week. Bye, guys.